Hey everybody, I just wanted to bring y'all back and give you an update on a project that I've been working on. Of course, I like to do 1911s. One of the things that I've done is made some pretty interesting sort of modified 1911s or learned through the process of building 1911s how to do a lot of this stuff. So now I'm in a period where I'm kind of just wanting to see what sort of things I can make. And so this is a goal, a project that I've always wanted. This is a Springfield Armory. Now, this is for people that like a very stock-looking military gun. If you really appreciate the look of the original GI pistol, the build quality of modern guns has come up to such a degree that you don't have to try to buy a retro gun anymore. So what we have here, and I'm going to show you why you can have a new gun and have all of the aesthetic and look of an older gun with having a much higher grade of shooting experience. And so what we have here is the Springfield Mil-Spec 1911. I don't know if this is what they call that defend your legacy, something or other. But a couple of important notes on this. The reason I selected this gun is because unlike the Tizas, this one actually gives you 3-dot sights. And they are still a pin on front, but a blade rear style 3-dot. And the beauty of a 3-dot is that you can have a modern shooting experience. If you look at the original sights on those GI guns, the best you'd ever do is to try to paint that front sight. And normally with these 1911s that don't have a Novak or a dovetail cut, you actually just have to have somebody punch out the front sight and punch a new one in, and it sometimes requires a gunsmith. So this Springfield Milspec has that. One of the other things that it does have as well is the ability to use super high quality steels. Now, nobody would really say that everything Springfield makes is great. If anything, if you watch the video on my Emissary, you can actually see that I've had nothing but problems with it, and there were some effectively back to the drawing board things that they needed. I will give Springfield credit when it is due. In this particular case, their steel is really some of the best steel that you can get out there without going to the higher level of steels like Caspian or companies that use their own special billets. So the forged steel slide, the forged steel receiver is really important. This one does have a period correct short trigger with rounded metal mainspring housing. And of course it has these wood grips on it. Now that was an important thing. Now some people might say, why didn't you put a beaver tail on there? I have to be honest, everyone has a beaver tail on their 1911. And there was a very good reason that when they made this pistol, they had it work like this. So the beaver tail enhances some of the shootability of the pistol. But again, this is not supposed to be a pistol that is designed for ultimate performance. This is a pistol that is designed to look a certain way and give you that experience. So in doing that, one of the things we'll do is let's address the problems that a Milspec might have without having to overhaul and spend a ton of money. And so effectively, one of the things that we'll need to do is just say, okay, well, can we make the gun shoot well? Can we make it reliable? And can we make it accurate? And so that's one of the things that we've done here. So the first thing that you do when you want to accurize a 1911 is you see if you can change to a little bit tighter bushing. What we've done in this case is I've actually got a bushing from Nighthawk that is a little bit bigger than the factory one by quite a bit, actually. On the scale at which tolerances are, the factory bushing on this gun had quite a bit more rattle and quite a bit less lockup. And the reason that they do that is for reliability, which is something I can definitely understand. But with these modern guns, reliability is not as much of an issue as you might think. So what we have here also is just the matching plug housing up here. And so obviously they had sanded together so that they will work kind of nicely and give you the same sort of look at the front. It also makes sure that when I was looking at this, my crown was nice and clean. I like to touch up the crowns only by just twisting the crowning tool in there a little bit, but just to clean up the crown to make sure that if there is any QC issues, we'll get those fixed. One of the problems that this gun had initially, and I'm going to show you a picture, was when this gun came to me, this sight had been installed so poorly, I could actually see underneath it. Are you seeing the pictures that I'm showing? I think that that's absolutely something that was unacceptable, and I made Springfield fix it. More stories about how Springfield and I just aren't getting along when it comes to certain things that, I wish that they would just handle right the first time. So this gun also comes with a Springfield Auto SA 45 auto barrel. This is a Milspec. It's a standard barrel, but because this is a much higher quality barrel than original barrels would have been in the early 1900s, this is absolutely going to be more than acceptable for good, accurate shooting. When combined with this bushing here, it's going to have nice lockup. One of the things that I had also done in this pistol is I had got a set of Wilson Combat barrel links, and they have links of different lengths. Which is, that sounds kind of funny to say, but one of the things that you want to do is be able to push on with the trigger back. Let's make sure, obviously our gun is safe, but you want to be able to push on this barrel and it shouldn't go down, or if it goes down, it only goes down a teensy bit. And in this case, what we have is full lockup into the lugs, and it doesn't flex up and down, which means that the locking lugs up into the slide are nice and tight. What I did was I took all of the links and I tested over and over and over to make sure that I would have one that wasn't too short and wasn't too tall. And so effectively choosing the right barrel link is a little bit more than finding one that fits most and finding one that fits this. And that's what we've done here. So by choosing a Wilson Combat barrel length that fits this barrel, we've done a little bit more to affect the accuracy. The next is actually just a little bit more of reliability work. Of course, what we've done in reliability and making the gun work a little bit better is by polishing and cleaning up some of the surfaces. Obviously, I don't want to have to disassemble the whole gun, but what I've done is I've taken some of the sear and the disconnector, and I have lightly polished those and gotten any burrs off of them. Any mating surfaces, of course, down here in the hammer, I've just made sure that anything that would be connecting or any two parts that interface have nice flat surfaces and that they don't have any burrs that stop them from working together. I also have a couple of things that I've done to make ultimately these parts run a little bit more reliably. What I have is, this is a trigger jig that allows me to put a 1911 trigger inside of it and make sure that it is straight. And so sometimes, let's just say I have a 1911 trigger here, I can put it in here and lightly tap it to make sure that if there are any bows or anything in there that is not totally square, that I can get it square. And then what I also have the ability to do is I can use this and I can polish the sides of the trigger. So that's what I've done with that. Another cool thing that I've done with some of these stones is that I've taken a trigger jig here. This is an Ed Brown trigger jig, and I took the factory trigger, a sear jig, and I've taken the factory sear that was in it, and I made sure that there was a very square, nice, polished sear on it so that the engagement is really good. What I've also done, though, is with a couple other small tools, there is a stone that I use to stone the inside of the trigger channel for those bars that I showed you that go on the trigger. And so that any sliding that it does back and forth is stoned to a high level of sort of stone polish. And then what that does is that just keeps everything from scraping and scratching. And so you're going to get a really nice level of trigger move back and forth while it still is very tight top to bottom, but it just has very, very easy. And if you listen, there's no scratching or scraping in there. Now, that's a very minute thing that you'd have to listen for, but I'm just saying these things all add up together. Another thing that I like to do is make sure that when I add a Wilson Combat bulletproof spring for the safety, one of the things that does is that adds a little bit more pressure to the safety here. Now, the thumb safety spring, and of course, this is going to be our spring for the slide stop. They're shared with a bar here, and a spring in the middle. What we've done is we've gotten, I think it's a little bit stronger spring and hardened pieces of steel that go on the ends of these. This is the black set. This is a factory thumb safety, and I wanted to keep this because it still had a good fit and it worked well with the sear after I had done some work on it. And so what I have done though is that I actually found the dimple that this sits in, and I widened the dimple a little bit and made it a little bit deeper so it was harder to snap in and harder to snap out. And I made sure that all of these ridges were nice and square so that you can have a very strong and very positive snap on, snap off, snap on, snap off, which is really important. Another thing that I had done was I had taken out this grip safety and I had just made sure that there are no burrs on it, and I made sure to re-blue everything after. A lot of this has parkerizing on it, which is very difficult to fix, so we just have to make sure that it is properly handled. The extractor on this gun was fine. There was actually no needed or adjustments that needed to be done, so I didn't mess around with it, to be honest. What I also had done though was put some flits inside the rails and just worked the action so there's no scraping that can be heard inside of there. It's just the springs compressing and decompressing, which is really nice, especially when you get all of that lockup up there. So what I'd also done is once you get inside, one of the things I'll do here is shine a little bit of a light. You can see that I have done some polishing on the barrel throat and the feed ramps. You can see it's a little tiny bit dirty in there because this gun's been tested, which is what you'd like to see a gun design like this to do. So, of course, it's not like the mirror polish because it's got some brass scrapings on there from being used. So, that's a nice thing when you're going to be looking at reliability. It's just making sure that all your sliding surfaces are nice and square and even. The magazine release is something that didn't need to be changed, to be honest. Same thing with the trigger. They are part of the overall look of this gun that work. One of the nice things about this is the trigger, and if you watch, you'll see there's a little take up, and there's kind of a hard spot on here where you can really feel it hit the wall. Now, I have a lot of 1911 guns that have triggers that really don't allow you to tell where the wall is, and that's not really ideal. In this case, because of the way that we squared up this wonderful sear with this sear jig from Ed Brown, we have the ability to make sure that we are also getting a nice crisp break. And so what we can do is, you'll see it hit the wall, 4.5 pounds exactly. It has been tested numerous times. 4.5 pounds exactly. So in this case though, when we have the short trigger and the curve on the back, the way that the gun was designed to be shot was with the pad of the finger here. A lot of guys with these long triggers, they sometimes will use the inside of their knuckle, or they'll use the pad here. I'm not here to give you shooting advice, but what I can say is that when you do let this set into the palm and you use the finger here, the combination of all of these things with that nice trigger is a very pleasant trigger break. And with the combination of an actual 3-dot sight, this really can make this great to shoot. One of the things I had done after that was I had opened up this mainspring housing and I had honed it with a mainspring housing hone. What that does is it actually can make the spring that goes up and down in it have less resistance. And if you listen, there's no stretching, there's no squeaking. You can actually just hear a silent engagement. Now, there are some 1911s, depending on what it is, where if you listen, you can actually hear it kind of make a sound. It will go, eh. That's because there are tolerances inside of this mainspring housing that are restricting the spring movement. Is that necessary for your gun to be reliable? Absolutely not. But it's just a luxury. And this is about this look with luxury. So, once again, nice, strong safety, everything you want. Beautiful trigger, reliable magazine insertion, removal, taking all the burrs off, full trigger job, full reliability workup in this gun. We're still using the factory springs. They work perfectly and they are tuned exactly the way that Springfield has them set. So I actually haven't done anything crazy on them. What I have done though is just put in a Wilson Combat shock buffer, that little blue tab, because this is a 45 ACP and that's just nice to have. A little less wear and tear on your parts and ultimately no effect on the reliability of the gun. I have put on a stick-on grip pad here because I don't want to do any checkering on this gun just yet. I am working on my checkering skills with my tools, but I don't want to say that I have that sorted out. This is a gun that I just want to be able to, I can instantly remove this grip section here and just, let it go back to its former glory. So what we have, in my opinion, is just some of the best aspects of the original gun, the way that it looks, with a lot of modern touches. It is not the absolute most bulletproof version of this gun. What we could do is probably go to a lot of tool steel parts, change to a lot of Harrison, safety and hammer and trigger and mainspring housing, no MIM parts, make sure that we're going with forged metal here. I mean, you could really just go down this rabbit hole. But the deal is, this is a Springfield GI pistol. Really, the part of everything in this pistol that gives you that humongous upgrade is these 3-dot sights, and that still maintain the look of the pin-on front sight, and that you can have the old school style grip safety, that nice short trigger, that round mainspring housing. Now this one doesn't have a lanyard loop. I guess one could be installed if you wanted to. I think though that this is, it has a couple of tells, obviously, this little grip panel, this nice, what we have a kind of a thicker barrel bushing. Again, these are things where this is not going to be period correct. This is not a clone. This is just kind of a Restomod. But having a full accurization workup, a fitted link barrel, to where it is absolutely a beautiful lockup that runs flawlessly, that has slicked up parts where it needs to, that has a trigger that works the way you want it to, that has no squeaks and, no nasty little things that make the gun feel gross when you rack the slide or make any funny noises or has any hang-up points. And it works perfectly fine with a regular old Springfield magazine. And the nice thing is, if you wanted to go all out, you could. I could do a silver color trigger here and other, things to make this look kind of cooler and fresher. But this is just a project in min-maxing. And so I like this gun. It's been accurate. It's a fun shooter. I appreciate you sticking with me through this review if you're still here. This is just me talking about some things that I would do on a gun like this for the purposes of just making an old-fashioned looking gun, but with some modern touches and some carryable things and upgrades that make the gun absolutely worth making a daily carry gun. Hope you're doing good. Thanks. Bye-bye.